Welcome to Spirit Call. I'm your host, Jenny Duranis, and this is the podcast where I share all about my experiences as a psychic, medium, tarot reader, numerologist, and Kundalini yoga teacher. Find all of the information at my website, jennyduranis.com, but for now, enjoy the show. Hi everyone. Welcome to another follow-up episode on the fraudulent so-called physical medium. If you're just finding this podcast now, please go back and listen to episodes 22, 23, and 29 so that this episode makes a lot more sense. In the last episode, I connected with Chris Connolly, who was present in 2016 when this individual was caught on film faking a seance. But I knew that the story had to go back further than that. I knew that this couldn't possibly be the first time that somebody caught him in the act. So I was really excited when I received a message from Mayo. Michael is an internationally respected medium, author, astrologer, healer, and spiritual teacher. He brings a practical, grounded, and evidential style to his spiritual work. With his passion for teaching and helping others discover their own unique spiritual connection, he has taught and worked globally. He is the founder of the Oak Bridge Institute, an online school that strives to raise the standard of mediumship and psychic studies. He is also the author of Spirit Speak, a step-by-step guide to genuine spiritual communication. Throughout his 18-plus years of working with the spirit world, he has demonstrated his ability to connect with departed loved ones in both public demonstrations and private sittings. By bringing messages of love and hope from the spirit world, his mission is to show that we, like love, are eternal. Thank you so much, Michael, for being here today. I was so excited to receive a message from you because at the time of releasing my podcast and doing research, coming across the video, it was exciting to hear from someone who knew this individual before the video came out. So I'm really, really, really excited to talk to you. But Michael Mayo, please tell us a little bit about yourself, how you connect to the mediumship world. How long have you been doing this? Tell us about your experience with mediumship.
Yeah, thank you so much. I'm happy to be here. Obviously, diving into this topic is drudging up a lot of the past, right? This is 2014. That's quite a while ago at this point. But yes, I do actually think that this is a good thing for us to talk about, and also an important part of my own journey. So you're talking about, what's my connection to mediumship? When I was 18 years old, I stumbled into a mediumship demonstration where the medium said, "You're a medium, you need to start developing, and one day you'll be doing what I'm doing." I went to my first development circle and got names, dates, specifics. I mean, just basically your like ideal reading, right? And I was like, oh, I guess this guy was right. I went back to my next development circle. I got nothing. I went back again. I got nothing. I went back again. I got nothing. And so I was like, wait a second. Okay, so I could do this one time. Surely there's another way. Like, surely I can do this again. I just need to figure out how. And that began an 18-year journey of developing my mediumship. So that's what I have done. Since that point, I have developed with some amazing mediums in Scotland and England, and through that have begun teaching, well, for several years now, but and I started my own online school, Oak Bridge Institute, and wrote a book about mediumship development. So I'm an author as well. I do healing. I've been an astrologer for longer than doing mediumship. And yeah, that's kind of me in a nutshell. So a lot of teaching, a lot of developing. I've worked within the fields of trance, mental mediumship, physical mediumship, healing. Now that's kind of my focus now, is just developing that more, which has been pretty amazing and incredible. So yeah, that's kind of me in a nutshell as far as my connection to the spirit.
Awesome. So it sounds like you have a ton of experience in kind of all of the different fascinating and fun areas of mediumship, right? And spirit communication. So I love that. And what about your physical mediumship journey? When did that start? How did you get into that world?
Basically, what happened was there came this point in my development where I think I was probably like 5 or 6 years into my development, having kind of developed in the United States up at this point, and more in the New Age sort of spirituality, looking for something that was real, something that was tangible. And while mediumship was the door that opened, there wasn't a whole lot of people around doing, mediumship and teaching that specifically. It was a lot of channeling and energy work and psychism and all this other stuff. And so I was kind of on my own in this sort of realm. And I remember seeing a video of Stuart Alexander, who is a physical medium, do a talk at a spiritualist church, and he told his story of you know how he first got it and how he had sat for a year, and then he was told to sit back down and continue to sit because nothing happened and he was going to give it up, and he was told sit back down and continue to sit, and when they turned off the light he went into trance. And I was so amazed by that. I was like, hey, look, Spirit, if you can do that with him, surely you can do that with me, like at some point. So I'm just going to forget everything I think I know. I'm going to put aside all of my beliefs, my understanding, and I'm just going to sit for you. So I went into the closet and I started sitting in like a red lit closet moment. And that started to have some pretty amazing results. I think just before that, I had my phone move off the table. So basically, what happened was I was sitting in the dark because that's what I started to do because I was trying to capture EVPs. And when I captured, which for those of you who don't know, that's electronic voice phenomena, and I was using my phone, so I sat in the dark. It was the lights were out, and I put my phone intentionally to the center of my desk because I was like, I don't want to, accidentally knock this off or whatever. So I put it in the center of my desk. I'm sitting and I'm like thinking, internally to the spirit world. I was asking questions for about 7.5 minutes. And all of a sudden, or not all of a sudden, I ask a question of the spirit world. If there hasn't been so yet, please make a connection onto the recording now. And as soon as I say now, the phone goes flying off my desk. And I got so freaking startled, not scared, just startled because I was not expecting that. And if you've ever seen like Looney Tunes and like they stick their finger in a socket and they get all like spiky, that's exactly how I felt because my whole body was like, what the heck? I think that was actually 2011 when that happened. And in fact, I could actually play that for you because I do have that if you're interested in hearing that. But that was such a wild experience. And I remember going to the place that I worked at because I worked at a metaphysical bookstore. And there was like a spiritualist medium there. And I was like, hey, do you know anything about this? And she was like, yeah, that's like a physical phenomena that's related to physical mediumship. And I was like, nobody had talked about physical mediumship. And I was like, what the hell? So that sort of opened the door, and I started to like devour all of the physical mediumship information and things like that. And that's how I sort of opened the door to spiritualism. I think before that, I always was kind of told that spiritualism was sort of a thing of the past. It was sort of this like relic, and there's all this fraud. And so I never really gave it the time of day. And then through that experience, I realized, oh, wait, there's something here. And that's sort of what opened the door to my physical mediumship. So for the next, several, few years, that's when I started to dive into that. After that, that's when I brought in the story about, what's his name? Stuart Alexander and all that. So I kind of told those in opposite orders, but that's kind of how that happened. Does that make sense?
Totally. And
Yeah.
I totally understand that explaining your mediumship journey pulls you in so many different
I
directions.
know. I was like, wait, which
So
part
many
am I supposed to be talking about right now? What the heck? So yeah, that was happening. Yeah.
Yeah, no, I do the same thing. Like, well, there was this, and then there was this, and then there's this. But we get the gist of it that you
Yeah.
started out with mental mediumship, and then this whole world of physical mediumship opened up to you through an experience that you had. And I think that's super cool. And so at some point, you came across the individual that we're going to speak about today. And
Yeah. So basically what happened with that was, gosh, there's like other things that fall into this. Essentially, and I'll just share this because I don't think I've ever really shared this. For my like whole life, I was fascinated with Australia. I was like, oh my God, Australia, Australia. I remember being in like sixth grade and being like, I want to go there. Like, where do you guys want to go? I'm like, I want to go to Australia. My family used to buy me Australia books, and like I was like listen to like Silverchair and was into all of these like different Australian bands and all this sort of thing. And it felt like there's this place I needed to go, like since a childhood. And so I decided when I was in college to go to Australia on a study abroad. And when I did that, I had already joined this website called Physical Mediumship for You. And all of the mediums that we talk about, those physical mediums, including the one in question, was on that website. I had also met another physical medium who was producing things in light. And I was really fascinated to meet that person. And he happened to live in Australia. That's not the medium in question that I'm referring to. And so when I knew I was going to go to Australia, I reached out to that guy. And that's what connected me to the center that I ended up, eventually living at, and with all the people connected to the person we're talking about. And when I was able to get to Australia, I met up with the physical medium who produced things in light. We started talking. We got along really well. I had, I suppose, a port arrive, and I went and started sitting for him for his development, and that brought me to that center. Once I was sitting for him, everybody there was like, this is great and all, but you need to meet this other person. He's going to be coming again. I think it was in March of that year, 2014. I think that's what it was. He's going to be coming again, and he has amazing phenomena. He's totally developed, like he has materialization, he has all kinds of things. And I was definitely wanting to see that and experience that because I had never seen someone who had developed fully their physical ability. So I was really excited. And that person was also on that website. So I started reaching out to that person. So we started talking before he even got there. And when he did arrive, he did come with his circle leader, and we became fast friends. And while he was there that first trip, I remember that he was like very keen on getting me to believe in what he was doing, because I'm a skeptic. Like that's my first thing. I'm like, prove to me that this is real, because all my years at that metaphysical shop, I'd seen all kinds of people claiming all kinds of things that they could do. And he was just another one of those people saying, hey, I can do this thing. And I'm like, okay, well, people I care about and trust you, but like I need to see it for myself. So I sat in my very first seance with this person. And by the way, this person's very charming. They're very charming. They come across very friendly, unassuming, sort of humble, very funny, has a really good way of trying to get you to feel safe or get you to not suspect anything. So I was like, okay, cool. This guy's hilarious. I'm gonna, just see what happens. I go in the very first seance, and as anyone who's been in the seance protocols, they're pretty intimidating. But I had already been sitting in seances, for quite a long time before that. Well, longish, weekly, multiple seances weekly. And so I was pretty confident and comfortable going into it. I get checked, I get scanned. And I remember in my very first one, I was so excited to have everything happen. And I remember getting pulled into the center of the room and getting tipped back and all of these sorts of things. And then I remember the spirit person grabbing the music while I'm like in the center of the room, tipped back in my chair, whatever, puts me down, grabs the music and starts playing, oh, Mickey, you're so fun. You're so fun. You blow my mind. Hey, Mickey. And like, that was clearly a reference to my name, Michael. And I remember that happening, and I was like, okay, this is pretty cool. Like so far, I'm like, this is wild, right? I go back to my seat. I do get addressed at some point by Jimmy, I think it was. I don't remember what he says to me, but he says something. And I remember at some point the materialized form comes out with the ping pong balls and brings the ping pong, like walking around showing their face, right? This the face of the materialist form, and is bringing it to their face. Now the medium in question that we're talking about has a very unique looking face, unique looking shaped head and a unique face. So the upper lip of this person is very small, and so it creates this really long gap between the tip of his, like the bottom of his nose down to his like upper lip. It's very long, and that's like a unique feature that I noticed. And I'm very good at recognizing people's faces. And I remember the materialized form, I'm using air quotes, walks up and puts the ping pong ball to their face, and I see that very long gap. And I'm like, and I can see his face. I'm like literally seeing the medium's face. And I don't think he realized in that moment how bright that light is. Like those ping balls are bright. And I could see his whole face. And I was just like, wait, what? And like my brain was so confused in that moment. Like, I don't understand this. So we get to the end of the seance. We come out and he comes up to me and goes, so what'd you think? And I was like, I have some questions. I'm like, it was cool, but I saw your face in the seance. And he was like, what? And I was like, yeah, I saw your face in the seance. Like materialized form came up with the ping pong ball and I could tell it was you. And he was like, oh, that's so weird. You know what? Put it to my spirit team when we sit in home circle next time. And I was like, okay. And that seemed to be the answer that I would get for everything. Put it to the home circle. I don't know anything, so put it to the home circle. And at this time, all the people around me believe what he's doing, what he's talking about. And so I don't really have a sense of like I should distrust this. I'm like, well, if everybody else believes it, let me think about like maybe it's me. And I'm a bubble burster. I'm the one that's always like, well, but couldn't it be? That's always been me. So I'm like, is this just Michael being a bubble burster? Because I like the reality of things and I can definitely pop the spiritual bubble a lot. So I did that. And I just kind of went along with it. And I was like, okay, let's sit in another seance because there's going to be many. So he let me stay in all of his seances while he was there. So I probably sat, I don't remember how many there were, handful. I'd probably say maybe 4 or 5 or something like that. So I sat in all of his seances while he was there. And every time after the seance, he would say, okay, well, it became this like a thing. How much do you believe now? What percentage? And so it was kind of a game that we sort of played of just like, okay, I believe this percent. I believe that percent. I believe it's this much. And that sort of became a thing up until a certain point. So I can't tell if I started to believe in that trip or if it was the next trip that he came back. But I remember there was a sitting once where the tent, because he sits in the porta potty, the tent like falls back and it was a red light on when the tent was falling back off of him. And the way his head looked in the lighting looked like as if it had been elongated or something happened. And I gasped and I was like, oh my gosh. And that was the thing that I saw that finally made me go, okay, well, maybe this is real. I'm going to put my things to the side. I'm sure you know what I'm talking about, Jenny. That thing inside of you where you're like, this looks odd. Something's telling me I'm not sure. Something's not clicking, but I'm going to go along with this because I think maybe it's me. Do you remember
Totally.
feeling that way?
Oh yeah, many times. I think the main thing for me, like an example of that would be when the arm comes out of the tent and the spirit team is claiming that it's rotating in 360 degrees. And so the first time I saw that, I was like, I think that's what I'm seeing. I think that must be what I'm seeing. But this other part of me was like, that's not what you're seeing, Jenny. And it looks like it's glowy and it looks like it's flowing, but you're in darkened conditions.
Yeah.
I don't think it's I think it's easy to say that our eyes do play tricks on us in these seances.
100%.
And so, yeah, I totally know what you're talking about there.
Well, an interesting thing about that specific idea is that I've sat in seances. I mean, I can't tell you how many seances I've sat in this person, and we'll get to the point where, I was the circle leader and all of that sort of thing. But I sat in this person's seances so much, and I can't tell you how many times that someone in the seance would say something happened that didn't happen. And
Yes.
I like pride myself on being a very objective person. I try to be as objective as possible. And people who still work with this person, people you probably actually met, Jenny, who would be like, oh, in the seance, XYZ happened. And I was like, that's not what happened. Like, I know exactly what happened in that seance. And you're saying that it was this magical thing. You're interpreting like through the lens of what you believe is going on. You're not actually paying attention to what's actually happening. And I think that's one of the biggest challenges with sitting in the seance conditions is that you're trying to make sense without clear stimulus of what's going on. And therefore, it's easy to create an understanding of something happening that's not happening. And so it's easy to manipulate one's perceptions. And that is why, it's so easy for him to say, that's just the spirit world playing with your mind. And what I've seen, especially with those that are closest around him, is that he's slowly been able to implant these ideas that will always be a get out of jail free card for him. And that's what's made, I think, them believe more and more and more. And so they can't shake this support at this point because they've seen too much through their understanding. And now they think this is how this works. When in reality, they're being fooled, which breaks my heart because these are people that I loved and cared about, on this journey. But yeah, I don't know where to pick up the threads there.
No, everything you're saying, and I think that this is what is so crazy about talking to someone who you knew him in 2014.
Yeah.
Here I am in 2024 saying the same things that there's a lot of manipulation going on, that we're working with people's beliefs and perceptions in ways that, he's manipulating that there's so much like fucked up psychology involved in this, that it isn't just you sat in a seance and spirit showed up. That's not what's happening. There's so much more to it. And just seeing the characteristics playing out over and over again with all of the people that have reached out to me, because you're not the first person either to say, this is how he does it, this is what he's doing. It's just lies upon lies that people start to then think that's how it's done. For example, in the last episode, when Chris and I were talking, he was mentioning a black figure walking about the room, passing in front of the glow in the dark objects. I was taught that that's something to look for.
Right.
So when you're looking for that and you see it, it's like, well, yeah, that's spirit.
Yep.
But when you question that, like, wait a sec, why would spirit do that? Why would spirit, if this is a rare ability, if this is something that is very hard to accomplish, why would spirit do that?
Yeah.
There's so many other things, right? And you're right. There's it's just such a twisted, fucked up situation. So
yeah, well, something that I think is important for people to understand, and hopefully I can get back around to the story of how this all unfolds, but I think something that's important for people to listen to is the fact that to be a fraudulent physical medium, you have to live your life like a fraudulent person. You have to actually, every step you take, everything you talk to people, even the relationships in which you have with people, there is always that in the back of your mind to have to make sure that you're saying the right thing, that you're acting like you don't know anything, that you are interacting with people in a way that leaves you a way out so that you can almost pull something from a previous experience and bring it into the seance room, but unbeknownst. So you're paying attention to these other things that are going on all the time. So it's this really weird way to live. And to be honest with you, like I actually have like compassion for this person in some way. A lot of it has been anger, a lot. He's definitely my go-to when I'm doing my meta practice of like send energy and love to the person that you don't like. And he's my number one. Um, so because he's, doing so much damage to mediumship and also just conning people, which is exhausting and tiring and upsetting. But I have compassion for him too, because what do you have to be and what do you have to have had experience? And how do you have to feel about yourself to wake up every morning and put on your pants? And your plan is to fool and con the people that you love the most every morning. All those people who support him, he's fooling and conning them. And he's knowingly doing it, despite the fact that they show him love, support, compassion, money, whatever, all the things that they do for this person. And they have egg on their face and they don't even realize it because he is waking up every morning and just fooling them over and over and over and over again for years now. I mean, that was 2014. It's 10 years now.
Yeah.
And they were with him before that.
I think it shows a huge lack of empathy. I think that part is missing.
Yeah. That is a 100% true thing.
Yeah.
He can play at emotions, but he doesn't necessarily have them, to be frank. So,
like
I'm not a psychologist, so I can't diagnose what I think that is. But yeah, anyway.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay, so let's back up a little bit here because we're talking to someone here who you were working with him before the 2016 video came out. And so, okay, so you're telling me that you were already in Australia, hanging out with some other physical mediums, experimenting, just, learning as much as you could. You come across this person, you sit in about 4 seances with him. And this is immediately when you start to have those questions, right? Of like, I saw your face and was there an explanation for why you saw his face?
Eventually, the explanation was there's a column of energy that goes around the room before that that mirrors essentially the medium. Essentially, it's like an extension of them, so it's like an energetic form that sort of can appear like that. Now, I didn't actually end up. I didn't quite buy that in the beginning, but eventually I just sort of had to you kind of learn to accept things. You're like, okay, maybe this is me. I think that's the biggest thing that messed me up. So that happened, and I started to believe. And then at some point in that first visit, I think it must have been the first visit, there was behind the scenes drama happening between his previous circle leader who was there and who funnily enough became one of my dearest and close friends. But drama where he sort of turned everyone against her and was kind of treating her really poorly and was not, just making her out to be the crazy one. And this is a pattern of his. He will find the people that he wants to work with, and we see this with previous circle leaders too. He will sort of isolate that person. He'll often charm the people he wants to like take in, and then he will like kind of dispose or get rid of those that he doesn't. Now he's actually lasted probably the longest with the people that I ended up knowing, and now they still support him and all that sort of thing. But he has a pattern of sort of using people and then kind of ditching them at some point. I think you kind of have to do that if you're faking things. You can't let anyone be too close. You can't let anyone, whatever. But since they've all bought him hook, line, and sinker, now I think he's okay with them sticking around, and probably gives him a sense of credibility as well. But anyway, the drama happened in the behind the scenes stuff. And so I ended up becoming the circle leader at that point. And so now I'm the one holding the music. I'm the one, directing everything. I'm the one doing all of these things. And it was the way that he makes it out to seem like the other person's the problem is just magical. Like it's breathtaking, to be honest. I mean, give him one thing. The man is a master manipulator, a master liar. Like, it's just wild. And so I become his circle leader. And we did that for a long time. I mean, throughout, I mean, his second trip, we were going to go to, like, we did a whole, like, all the seances in Australia. We were supposed to go to New Zealand. We did travel to England, not for saying, oh, actually, we did do seances. Why don't I remember being the circle leader there, though? I don't remember being the circle leader there. But we did seances in England. And then, yeah. So, I mean, I sat in, I can't tell you how many seances, still accumulating questions, still being like, wow, I don't know about this, but like, I kind of believe this and I'm not sure. I think because you trust the person and because you believe the way that he is, you think that's actually, like, you can't be this and also this. You can't be this close person to me and also a freaking liar. Like, that would require you to be lying all the time, 24/7. That's, no one's like that. Like, that's what was going on in my brain. So then our friendship began to hit rocks, and I think revealing more of the person that he is. And I really started to revisit my questions and start to look at, okay, well, but this doesn't make sense. This doesn't make sense. This doesn't make sense. I'm seeing, because again, I said he has an oddly shaped head. It's a little bit flatter, like around the top and the back. And so, like, I'm seeing shadows walking, and you, with the light behind it, that silhouette is his silhouette. At one point, I remember seeing his underwear on, or my underwear on him. And I was like, what? Because he said that night, he's like, I'm going to wear these underwear. And I was like, okay, you can, wear those. Because at that point we were already living in the same space and all that sort of thing. So I was like, okay, whatever. And I see them in the seance on the materialized form. And that's like famously in like a psychic news article where it's like, he was wearing my underwear. But yeah, I remember seeing that. And there's a ton of things. And I remember actually even telling my friend, because I really started to question like everything. And I told my friend to come visit. I'm like, I'm going to fly you out to Australia. We can hang out, we can have fun, but I need you to tell me, is this real or am I just a crazy person? And I did. And she came, she saw, and she was like, it's fake. And I'm like, okay, I just want to make sure. So then I was like, okay, if this is fake, I need to like reveal this, because I've never been the type of person who just sits back and just lets things like that happen. I'm kind of outspoken and whatever. So I'm American. So I devise a plan because I'm the circle leader. I know exactly how the seances are going to go because they're the same. I know what to do here to devise a plan to somehow turn on the light mid-seance. That becomes my plan. This is probably November now. This is November and of 2014. And so I decide, okay, I'm going to just, when I know that he is on the other side of the room, I'm going to get up and check the chair and see if he's in it. But I need to figure out how, because I'm holding the person to my right's hand and I have music in the other. So as a circle leader, there's no one to your left because you have to be able to get up and walk around and do all that. So I decide, okay, I know this person and I suspect he's doing this. God help me that he is fake, because if I get up and, because you're told, you could kill the medium if you get up and you hit the energy. And I'm just like, oh my God, am I about to kill this person? Am I totally wrong? Am I going to kill this person? Oh my God. So I hear, but I'm like 99% certain it's him at this point. And so he's like walking, where he goes around, he like touches people's legs. And he touched my leg and I was like, okay, hello. And then he touched the person next to him and then he shook his chair. And I was like, oh, and I did this intentionally very loudly. Oh, he just shook your chair. That must mean the spirit's going to pull you into the room later, like in totally intentionally loud so he could hear me, because I knew if I said that, he was going to bite and he was going to pull that person in the room, leaving my two hands free so that I could get up and walk into the cabinet and see if he was there. So I do that. He very much on cue thank you, so-and-so, pulls this person into the center of the room. And when he does that, I'm like, I'm free. My heart's pounding. I'm scared. I'm like, oh my God, I'm going to do this thing now. And, having worked in the seance conditions for so long, I know how to get around. You really need very little light to be able to walk around a seance room. I think I remember you saying that, Jenny, in your podcast. And so I decided to get up, and I was like, okay, here we go. I get up, I walk maybe 5 steps because I can hear him at the other end of the room doing stuff. And I reach into the cabinet, I put my hand on the chair, I tap the chair, and he is not in that chair. Now, what I regret doing is not checking what the cable tie situation is to understand what is happening. I take reverse those steps. I sit back down. My heart's pounding. I'm like, oh my God, it's fake. And I was like, okay, I guess I have to turn on the light. And then I didn't. And I feel that is one of my main regrets of how I handled this. So I have 2. This is one of them. But the reason I didn't turn on the light was because I didn't want it to come back on the person who I was living with at the time. This was her property. She was so good to me. She was such a dear friend of mine. She was like my mom away, like my Australian mama. Like I loved her so much. We had such a great relationship. And I didn't want this to come back on her, in some way. So I decided not to. And I was like, okay, I'm not going to do that. I'm just going to bring it up. And I regret that now. Because had I done that, well, looking at the outcome now, obviously hindsight 2020, it didn't matter because she ended up believing him and not me anyway. And so, it would have just been better for everybody if in 2014, a light would have turned on. Now, I'm sure he would have found a way to weasel his way out of that. But yeah, so I don't turn on the light. I end up going at the end of the seance, I go to someone else who lived on the property who kind of had a little bit of a grading relationship with the medium. And I was like, hey, I got up in the middle of the seance and I checked if he was in the chair, and he was not in the chair. And he was like, what? You got up? And that's everybody's first reaction when you talk about getting up in the seance, because everybody believes that if you get up, you're going to kill the medium. Right. And so every time I told someone, their reaction is, what? You got up? And I was just like, I did. So I tell him that, and I was like, okay, we got to tell the lady who owns everything. And so she came in, and I was like, I got up and checked the chair. And she was like, what? You did what? You checked the chair? I was like, yes, I did. But you know what? He wasn't in it. And so, and so then we're like, okay, well, I guess we got to bring it up to him. So, everyone had left and it was just us. And he comes in, he's like, what's going on? And I was like, and the lady was like, I go ahead and tell him. And I was like, okay, well, in the seance, I got up and I checked the chair and you were not in it. And so we have some questions. And he goes, what? You checked the chair? Or like you got up in the seance? He's like, you could have killed me. I was like, well, technically no. Had you actually been still tied in that chair? Maybe. But the fact that you weren't shows me that you couldn't have been killed. So no, I didn't actually do that. And he was like, oh my God. He's like, I don't know. He's like, the spirit betrayed me. I always told them that I would, not do this work anymore unless, they always did things honestly and clearly. And now they betrayed me and all this stuff. And he tried to just turn it all on the spirit world. So we go walking back to the place that we were staying on the property. And I'm walking with him and I'm just like, look, here's what you need to do. You need to just tell the truth. This is your opportunity. You can just tell the truth. Because I go into the room and he's like, just like acting all distraught, like just totally, I can't believe the spirit would do this to me. All that stuff. I was like, you could just tell the truth. Why don't you just tell the truth? It's okay. People will forgive you. If you are just honest and you say, you know what, this part wasn't real, but you know what, my healing is real. Because this person's healing was real. As I said, I worked with him that whole, lot of that year and did the healing clinics and all that stuff with him. And he got really good results. Now, that doesn't make him necessarily a physical medium, does it? He's just a healer. So, and not just a healer. Healers are fucking amazing, especially when you could do it at the level that he could do it, right? But he acted like it was the spirit's fault. I tried to convince him, this is the moment. This is your moment. Just clear it up. And everybody here loves you already. We're going to forgive you. We're going to understand it, but you need to stop doing seances. If you stop doing seances, then everything's fine. He's like, oh yeah, I'm never doing seances again. Are you kidding me? No, I'm absolutely not doing seances. The spirit betrayed me. I'm not doing this anymore. That's where it was left that night. I go to sleep. I wake up in the morning. And where is this medium? Where are you? Where's the other people? Why is this other home circle member's car in the driveway? Like, what the hell is going on? I get up and I go, hey, to one of the other people who live there. Where's so and so? And they're like, oh, I think they're in the seance room. And I was like, what do you mean? I said, something about an emergency home circle meeting. And I was like, what the hell? I was the home circle leader. Like, what do you mean? I'm not even there. So clearly there's a reason I'm not meant to be there. So I go over to the thing, and from the outside of the seance room, you can still hear what's going on inside. So I'm sitting there next to listening by the door, and I hear Jimmy, which is the supposed guide, coming through saying, we had to do this because we knew that Michael was going to check the chair. And we needed to do this because if we didn't, it could cause harm and damage to the medium. So again, using that same excuse that he used, like we knew something was going to go on. And I'm just going to say this because I'm going to forget to say this later. Anyone who works with the spirit world knows, especially in physical mediumship, that there's something called a blank sitting. If there's something called a blank sitting, which is essentially where nothing happens, in those instances, why the hell wouldn't the spirit just not do anything? Either the spirit should come through and say, you know what, I know that XYZ is about to happen, and so we're going to protect our medium and we're not going to do, or whatever. Just know that this is what's going to happen. And then, or B, just not have anything happen at all and give everybody their money back. That is exactly that is what the spirit world would do. So for anyone who doesn't know this, the spirit world is intelligent. The excuse that this person has, put on the other world is so ridiculously infantile and idiotic. And it shows you that there's no understanding whatsoever about, how the spirit world works and what happens in genuine physical development and all of that sort of thing. So it's this person's just playing at being a physical medium and having a spiritual understanding, when in reality, it is just this person and all of the made up ideas with enough truth in it to make it palatable. So basically, I hear that and I lose it. Like, I am livid because I know that this person is lying. And I am all about integrity. I am all about it being that being the truthfulness of our connection to spirit is everything to me, passionately so. And I, if we're talking anger, rage to a 10, I've lost my damn marbles because this person is going to try to get out of this. And he's blaming me and the spirit world as to why he did why they did what they did. And it's just such bullshit and lies. And I'm like, he's going to get out of this now. He's going to weasel his way out. So I slam the door and I just go storming off. And then eventually they all come back. And not the medium, but the two people who support him. And I say, so what did he say? And they said, it's not between, we can't tell you, it's up to you to talk to the medium about it. And that's what you have to do. And I was like, okay. And I don't know if I spoke to him at that moment, but I remember going and speaking to them again more, where they basically say, they said that it was because you checked the chair and they needed to protect him. And so they got him up. Now, this is where regret number 2 comes in. Regret number 2 was in my rage, in my upset feeling. I told them that I had checked the chair more than once. That was not true. But I was so livid and so angry about what had happened and wanting to get them to see the truth And to know this person was harming them, was harming people, was being a fraud. I was so angry that in that moment, you have that split second moment of just like, I just need you to believe me right now. Because whether I've checked it once or whether I checked it 5 times, it doesn't actually matter, because the fact that he got out of the chair once is enough to understand that this is. So I regret that, because I said that to them. And the person who I had spoken to, who kind of had a grading relationship with the medium, comes back later and says he had only checked it once. And so then that discredited me to them. Now I'm a liar. And, fair enough. I did lie about that, and I have to live with that for my whole life. Is that like, because I'm such a, anyone who knows me, they're like, Michael is like crazy about lying. Like, I hate it. Like, it's one of the worst things ever. So I have to live with that fact. And it's unfortunate, because I think it ended up damaging my credibility with getting them to fully accept and understand and like potentially leave the support of this person. But in any case, I feel like it's important for me to share that, because that's what they're going to leverage against me. So in any case, that was a big regret of mine with regards to all of this. And I ended up having to actually stay there a whole other month, because I didn't go home till Christmas Day. And so I ended up going on like this cruise with this medium, and like with the family, and like all of that sort of thing. And oh man, was it ever awkward. And that was probably one of the most difficult and depressing time periods of my life, of like having to like, everyone was turned against me. So from that moment, all the people on the property, all the people that like would come to circles, I was ostracized. I would literally, the only person was the one person who's currently his circle leader oftentimes. She was still kind to me. The person that was like my mama in Australia, she was still kind to me. She was still more Switzerland. She was neutral. And so that was that. And I eventually left on Christmas Day. And I remember one of the last times, obviously not the last time I saw him, but one of the last times I saw him, I remember seeing him and just being like, okay, this is probably the last time I'm ever going to see this person. Left, was so relieved to go home, because that whole month was just so depressing, because everybody was against me. Everyone's like, you're the problem, all this sort of thing. So he turned everybody against me, and that was terrible. And it wasn't until like a year and a half later that the video came out, and I was like, oh my god, this is amazing. I got a message from someone, hey, this video came out about so and so, and it proves this. And I was like, I'm vindicated. Like, yay, finally they're going to believe me, and they're going to believe that this is all true, and we're going to be able to have a relationship back, and these people are going to recognize this has been fake the whole time, and everyone's going to live happily ever after. And my sweet, sweet little naive brain thought that that's how that was going to go. And that was not how it went at all. They still believed his lies. They still believed his ways of manipulating it. And I learned something very important about the psychology of belief in that moment. And it is that it's harder for people to challenge their own beliefs, to accept for two reasons. One, you have to be able to look at the relationship that you have with this person and realize that was all a lie, because you can't be in a relationship with someone and have them do that to you and have it be truthful, honest, or in any level of integrity. The second thing is, every spiritual experience you think you had, you have to reevaluate every spiritual experience you had and decide what's real, what's not, what's valuable, what's not. And that can be very difficult when your dead husband is coming through, handing you tiles with their names in it, or these like really special, like physical mediumship things that seemed real to you. And when you have that sort of emotional connection to that, there's just too much you have to reevaluate. And I can see, for those of us who had to go through that, like for myself, that 2015 year was a rough year of trying to sort and understand all of this. And then I eventually got there. But that's what would be asked of these people who are supporting him now. And so I can understand why someone would rather just believe the lie that he creates rather than actually deal with the inner work and self-reflection and painful truth. I can see why it's so much easier to believe. So that's the long ass story. I hope that surmises all that, summarizes it.
Oh my gosh, Michael, you've covered all of the questions that I wanted to ask, or most of them anyway. And I've just been sort of absorbed in your story. And at this point, I'm like, oh, there's just so much in that. And, to pick up where you just left off what comes next after you see the truth. And I completely relate with what you said about that 2015 year being really tough for you, because now the weight of everything that I thought to be true or was hoping was true and real and possible, all of the spiritual experiences I've had. And for me, it really has been more about witnessing other people have their experiences, because, like I've said from the beginning, this has been more about me as a medium. What can I learn? But still, it would be great if my loved ones came through too. And I've sat only in 15 seances with 5 different physical mediums. And this one person has made me question all of my experiences, all of them. And these were, at the time, life-changing experiences. This isn't just like going to a theater and watching a show. This is what you think extremely reality-shattering, life-changing experiences. And many people are going home and telling their friends and telling their family, and most of their friends and family members are looking at them like, you're insane. And so there's that part of you inside that's like, no, I know this to be true because this is what I experienced. And there can also be what I've noticed, and maybe this is just with myself, but I don't know. This kind of like, there's so much that you don't know that's possible when it comes to spirit and mediumship. And so I'm not even going to begin to try to explain. I just know what I know, right? And that is so fucking embarrassing for me, that that's kind of what I was thinking and feeling just a few short months ago. And like, I feel like my face is permanently red. That's how embarrassed. Like, I'm just like a tomato now. I'm just walking around like a tomato because of how embarrassing this is. But if we can't go back and say, okay, let's look at where was I trained working with this individual to follow along. And when I'm shown the proof and the evidence, what comes up? And if we aren't that self-aware to just be honest with ourselves,
Yeah.
we have a problem. Maybe we shouldn't be doing seances.
Right.
Maybe we should be just, I don't know, doing something else with our time and money and souls. And so you're right. It really, I have a ton of compassion for the people who still can't see it.
Yeah.
And I think you and I know how frustrating it is that when you do see it, you can't unsee it. It's
Right.
almost, I think it was easier to convince me that it's true than to unconvince me. But
Right.
as soon as I was like, oh, wait a sec, if I just look at what I'm seeing and try to be like a normal person right now, I'm not a medium. I'm not, I'm not seeking for anything. I'm just a regular person sitting in this chair. What do I see?
Yeah.
I see the medium. I see him walking around. I hear him getting up and down.
Yep.
See his hand looking for the zipper. And not to mention the fucking Halloween mask. I mean, you didn't
Oh,
meet William.
I
So,
didn't.
I mean, that in itself, I think is like such an extreme example of how far he's going now,
Yeah.
10 years later,
Yeah.
to add new things, because there's only so many places he can go with this,
Yeah.
right? Because it sounds like, let's go over some of the things you've witnessed. So you've had 10 years ago, the hand that comes around and touches everyone, the
Mhm.
glow in the dark balls that shows his features and his body.
Yep.
You've had the spirit materialization that comes and pulls people out in their chair and tips them
Yep.
back. I mean, so spirit couldn't think over a 10-year period of anything new to do, to say, hey, look, this is evidence of the afterlife.
Right.
There's nothing more. I mean, what else were you witnessing along those
Yeah.
lines? Tipping
So the
trumpets?
the trumpet phenomena, luminous
Okay.
plaque. He would do things with tiles where he would like, mostly this was done in like a home circle setting, but he would basically like get Scrabble tiles and put the name of someone. Interestingly, I never gave him my spirit guide's name because I wanted that to come through, but he knew he was a doctor. And so what tiles did I get? DR. Whereas like other
Okay.
people got the names of their loved ones and all that sort of thing. Other phenomena, the ectoplasm sort of coming out with the lights, like knocking and seeing the ectoplasm come out. Um,
Which is just a towel. It's just
yeah,
fabric coming out.
it can be fabric, but it can also be other things. So, one of the other circle leaders found in the chair that they used, that she still had, in the zipper of the chair, found stuffed inside plastic, some sort of like plastic ceramic, kind of like if you were to go to the grocery store and like you put your fruits in it and stuff like that kind of fat, like plastic, that was stuffed away in there. Oh my God, I gotta tell you guys this one though, because this is really wild. So nobody deeply checks the medium, right? Like that was something you guys had said in the previous interview, that nobody checks him really. And I was checking him before and after the seances for any tucked away sort of thing. And when I say I'm checking him, I'm saying get totally naked and I'm going to look and see if you have anything. He let me do that every single seance that I sat in. I didn't always do it, but many times. Every time I asked him, he said yes, except one time. And it was this one time where the cabinet was supposed to, basically what he would do is he would be, the end of the seance generally was like he's tied into the chair, the cabinet falls backwards off of him in the red light, so you see him never moving, which I was able to replicate outside later. You wearing his same clothes in the same sort of ties and everything. I could get the cabinet to fall off me without ever being untied. And anyway, gets falls back, and then there would be ectoplasm like hanging out of his mouth or whatever. And they would do like the knots and all that sort of thing. This one time, the cabinet was stuck. So there was two cabinets in the room. One was the plastic one or the porta potty, and the other one was a wooden one. And he was trying to get the cabinet to fall back, but because the wooden one was behind it, the weight of the porta potty couldn't pull it like off of him. Essentially, guys, like once you just tip it far enough back, the top part's so heavy, it pulls it the rest of the way off of the medium. So it appears like he's not using his hands because he doesn't have to, but he's just using his mouth and he's just pulling it backwards, and then the weight takes care of the rest. It couldn't fall backwards because the wooden thing was there. And so I was like, this is the moment. I have to check him in this one because if he's tucked away something on his body, he brought it into the seance somewhere, it should still be on him because he never revealed it in any way. That was my theory. We get out of the seance immediately. I go, okay, let's go to the house. I'm gonna check you to see if you have it. He's like, no. I was like, what do you mean no? He's like, no, you're not doing it. I'm like, you've literally let me do this every single time. He's like, no, you're not checking me. And we literally have this argument walking back to the house. I'm like, you're going to let me check you because this is the moment that if you are faking anything, this is the moment that is going to happen. He did not let me check him. He hurries to the bathroom, flushes the toilet, and goes, okay, you can check. And I was just like, you son of a. I was like, what the heck? Yeah, isn't that wild?
That is, and this is one of the things that I was criticized for in Albany, was that at the end of the seance I didn't ask for a strip search. Um, and much like when you didn't turn on the light when you had the opportunity, just like how I didn't reach out and grab him when he was like a foot in front of me.
Yeah.
There's this weird thing that comes over your brain, right? That's like, don't do it.
Yeah.
Don't. And I don't know. It's like I feel it as a pulse that comes from him. There's just this intimidation, energetic thing happening there. As a sensitive person, we pick up on that stuff.
Yeah.
And it's like fear and intimidation, and don't do it. And so, yeah, I didn't ask for a strip search. Um, I've never seen anyone ask for a strip search in 15 seances over a year. And
Well, and all
and
the ones I saw, nobody ever asked either.
Yeah, no one is asking. No,
Only me.
yeah, it's so this is it, where it takes one person like you to be that person. But if he's coming at me with why didn't you ask for a strip search, and now I'm hearing from you that he has refused being searched
The one time, yeah.
the one time when it was most important because you could pretty much tell he had something on him.
Yeah.
That's interesting to note,
Yep.
right? And these are the little stories that most of the people who refuse to see this, they don't know these stories. And
Yeah.
that's why we're doing this today. It's not about trying to attack this person as a person, right?
Yeah.
It's the damage that's being done, that there is more to the story here than just whoops, a fluke video came out. We have an explanation for that. It's the retreat owner's fault because they put a camera in the room, so we experimented, or like your story. Oh, we knew Michael was going to check the chair, so
Yeah.
we had to do a different thing.
Yeah.
That's not what's happening.
Yeah.
That's not what is happening here.
No.
We have,
100% no.
we just have to look at, the facts. The facts
Yeah.
are you checked the chair, he wasn't there. Can anyone else, you know, believe you? You just have to ask people to believe you, much like I just have to ask people to believe me. But when we look at over a 10-year period and then an 8-year period when the video came out from now, he's doing the same things. So if we're going to say that he knows what the ping pong ball trick looks like
Yeah.
when it's authentic, and he's in trance and spirit, and it looks exactly the same. The only difference now is he has bigger balls. Like
Yeah.
actually the balls are bigger. They're
Yeah.
closer to a tennis ball size. And they were very, very bright. And
Yeah.
in one of the seances, Jimmy was complaining that the balls are too bright. Why did you charge them up so much to the circle leader? And so, there's always this like humor of like, oh, I'll do it better for you next time. I'll try, and everyone's laughing about how why did you charge them up so much? And yeah, if we can just go, okay, wait a sec. 10 years ago, people were saying these are the same experiences in the seance room. Spirit has not expanded. Spirit has not found new ways to bring evidence of the afterlife, because one of the things I haven't focused on too much in this whole situation is we need evidence. Phenomena, great, but intelligence of our loved ones is
Right.
why we're all there. And
Right.
there's very little of that. And from what I've seen, it's easily Googleable stuff,
Right.
especially the precipitation art, which is simply just a printout of someone's
A
face.
100%. 100%.
So in the time that you knew him, in that year period, was there a ton of evidence of, I know, like you said, like I didn't tell him my spirit name's guide, so he just gave me doctor. Was there anything that was very convincing in terms of something that a guide said that he should have otherwise known?
No.
Okay.
I
Okay.
mean, this was 10 years ago, so trying to
Yeah.
traumatic. So I don't know how well my memory is going to work on those tiny specifics. But no, I don't
Yeah.
believe that there was. If he knew some sort of information about you, though, it would come up. So, like, I remember one time being in a seance where through the trumpet, the name of someone's either unborn daughter, I think it was like unborn daughter, came through to this person. But I know he knew, I mean, he must have known that information. Um, and then the names of people's loved ones coming in the tiles, that's another example of that. So yes, I do believe if he knows anything about you or he can know something about you, he will use that in the sense, which is why I was so protective of my information, my loved ones. I never gave any of that information. And you know who never came through? My loved ones or my spirit guide's name or anything like that.
Exactly. That's exactly my point. That have you ever listened to the podcast Fake Psychic
No.
about Lamar Keene? He was a physical medium in the 70s, I believe,
Okay.
and eventually confessed and then gave a whole story of how he was doing this. And literally faking seances and the
Yeah.
trumpets and all that stuff. And he said that he literally just had like files on people
Yeah.
of their personal details. Now, I'm not claiming that this person has that, but
Yeah.
if he doesn't, he has a very good memory.
I think it's that because I've never seen anything that would indicate that this person keeps track or things like that. And it's always interesting to hear people's theories about how this works. Like, oh, the circle leader's in on it, or there's a confederate, or this. Folks, it's all him. Like, just so you know, it's all him doing it by himself, with the help in the sense of someone else backing up his reasoning and his story and maybe fighting on his behalf. That's probably the only, unbeknownst to them, they are the ones doing that, but it's just him doing it by himself.
Yeah, I agree. Because the people that I've met that he now, in the US, he's got his little home base here. I shouldn't say
Yeah.
here. I live in Canada, but it's close to me here. And so, from what I understand, this is only the last few years that he's established that.
Yeah, that's new.
Yeah, and I've met those people, especially the woman that he organized the conference with, and she has the biggest heart. She's
Mm.
just such a kind, maybe I don't know. I don't know her well, but the sense that I got from her when I said, "Listen, I'm driving 4 hours to come to this seance. Can you recommend a place for me to stay?" I stayed at her house.
Yeah.
She invited me into her home. She fed me,
Yeah.
gave me her spare bedroom, and this medium was there too the whole time. So I have spent 3 days straight. It's enough to get a sense of, what's this person really like,
Oh
And what
yeah.
I found was not a lot of personal details,
Yeah.
not a lot of who I am, where I come from, how I got into this. I mean, I wasn't asking,
Yeah.
but the conversations would never land on him in terms of how he got to be here, how he got to know these people. I know from what I've been told that he kind of infiltrated a physical mediumship community in the Albany area and did what he was doing when you first met him, turned people against each other
Yeah.
to establish his sort of,
Exactly.
position here. But it is really heartbreaking to see genuine kind people supporting him so wholeheartedly when you worry about where's that going to take them in the future? How is that going to affect them financially, emotionally, mentally, spiritually, like we have been? And mine
Yeah.
was short. You had a
Yeah.
big chunk of time there. I mean,
Yeah.
I'm still, this is 2 months later, I'm still trying to wrap my brain around the last year of my life on this journey. And yeah, it's heartbreaking. I have some,
We still do that 10 years later. Me, another circle leader, one that's really a close friend of mine, we will still drift into the conversation of like, how was this real? How was this possible? How could someone be like that? And our brains can't handle that. And what you just described is the MO of how he works. He finds the people who are generous, who are kind, who are willing to give of themselves, who do believe in these sorts of things, and he capitalizes on that.
yeah, I have some random questions for you.
Please.
Uh, in my research since this whole situation, I've come across an acting profile online.
Yeah, that's the same one that was there 10 years ago.
It's Star Now.
Yeah,
Star
same
Now.
exact one from 10 years ago.
So 10
I don't
years
know
ago.
if he's added anything to it, but he had the accents on there. That he could do a posh English accent, which, funnily enough, is Abraham. I think is who that is. And then also, I don't know if it's Abraham. I don't remember anymore. But Jimmy's the Irish accent, which he could do, which his family's Irish, so he sure knows how to do an Irish accent.
Okay.
But yeah,
So for
like,
anyone who doesn't know quite what we're talking about here, when you're in a seance, a trance guide will come through, a spirit communicator, and often they will have a different sounding voice than the voice of the medium. And so it's kind of convincing that, like, oh, wow, that's not even him speaking. There's another spirit person speaking through him. And so Jimmy has this Irish accent. And yeah, on the acting profile, it lists the different accents that he can do. So okay, I want to make this clear. If a medium can be and do anything they want outside of their mediumship. If you want to go be an actor, go be an actor. That's
Yeah.
fantastic. I mean, it's not, I don't want to bring this up as like, who does he think he is? You know, he should be devoting his whole life to this. It's not that. It's that it's very suspicious to me and absurd that we have this seance room experience where it looks like someone's just acting. And then we have an actual acting profile listing the certain accents that he's capable of doing. And another thing that really stood out to me when I looked at this the other day and more recently is that he has a list of like who he is and what he does for a living. So, being that you're someone who knew him for a good year, spent a lot of time with him, you were fairly close, like you were close to this person. Was there ever a time that he mentioned owning a pub, owning and operating a pub?
Can't recall, to be honest. I can't recall. I wouldn't be able to honestly say. He did say he had done hairdressing or something like that, or owned a salon or something like that at some point. So
Okay.
I don't know if it's true, but that was what I was told. I don't have any evidence to support that. But yeah, so I don't actually know if he had done some of the things that are on that list. Running a
Yeah,
nightclub or something like that. I don't think that's true.
yeah, so there's pub, private investigator,
Yeah. What?
bodyguard,
Okay.
first responder.
What?
Yeah.
Okay. I mean,
And
maybe now I know he got a helicopter license, flying license, and that is true. So he got his
okay.
pilot license. So maybe he also got a first responder. I don't know. It's been 10 years, so I don't really know.
Okay. I'm just, again, if he wants to go do those things, fantastic, great. Do what you're passionate about. But my concern is how do you have time to fit all that in?
Well,
Because
he's a fraud, so that's how.
well, I know, but I'm trying to look at it through the eyes of someone who wants to not see what we're saying. And so,
Yeah.
the story here is that he's been doing healing and some form of mediumship in the mediumship world since he was 12 or 13. I've heard him say
Mhm.
that in interviews. And
Yeah.
so if you are a world renowned psychic surgeon traveling the world doing seances and healings, I'm just a little bit concerned about how you fit in the rest of those things that require training. Like you don't
Right.
become a private investigator overnight
Right.
unless doing it in some other way.
Sure.
And a first responder, um, and again, this isn't, if those things are true, awesome. I'm just concerned that there's too many absurd little pieces here with this acting profile because there's no mention in it. There's all these other mentions that I've never heard talk about, but there's
Right.
no mention about I'm a world-renowned psychic surgeon. There's a link to one of his older documentaries that was made about him, but that you kind of have to dig to find that a little bit more than the description. Anyway,
Yeah, so I mean, I don't think, I mean, ultimately, folks, if you're still wondering whether this person's real, see the video of him faking it. I mean,
yeah,
that's all you have to do because if you go watch that, they'll say that there's, that this is the spirit. Why would the spirit person jump back and giggle and laugh in the middle of this? If he's really in trance, why is he laughing? If he's really in trance, why is he knowing, oh, I need to step back here because this person's going to feel me, and watch him like calculate how close he should be or how far he should be? Why would the spirit world knock and then literally, and this is like, folks, I don't know how to make this more obvious. You watch him do it, put something in his mouth and then knock and then pull it out a little bit and then knock and then pull it out a bit. Like, what? Like the cognitive dissonance that's happening there, you really just, I need you to snap out of it right now because that's him faking it. That is a conscious choice. So this idea that the spirit world would do something like that is laughable. It is honestly a joke. Like anyone who has any understanding of what phenomena, and by the way, I do need to say this because I know I'm going to forget, physical mediumship is real. I have had the privilege of seeing ectoplasm, genuine ectoplasm, come out of myself and someone else in the light, mind you, in good green light of an exit sign. And I've seen spirit lights in the room come into the space. I have seen tables sliding up a wall because of, doing table tipping and table phenomena. I've seen what I would call the beginnings of like genuine physical phenomena. If you look into any of the physical mediumship research, you will find that the ones that are easy to produce are things like ectoplasm and mist form and spirit lights. Those are like the easiest kind of what you can get, most likely. But those lead to other things. Those evolve into other things. Hearing disembodied sounds or voices and things like that, those things come as well. And another thing I've experienced. So physical phenomena is genuine. It is real. And I've only seen it once, and I can guarantee without any, or twice, I guess, guarantee, maybe 3 times, like remembering all these different experiences, where I can guarantee it was not fake. And so for those of you who are like, I still want to believe that physical mediumship is real, it is. It's just probably not going to be with the people that are out there being like, come pay me money and I will do the seance for you on Wednesday at 7 o'clock. Because we know that the nature of physical phenomena is inconsistent, just like all mediumship. It is inconsistent. So it requires the right circumstances. It requires the right environment and all of these sorts of things. And yes, can a physical mediumship who is developed make these things, like be a strong contributor to making these things happen? Absolutely. But it still is going to be variable. And sometimes you're going to have really amazing things. Sometimes you're not going to have amazing things. That's the nature of sitting. Anyone who's sat for development for physical mediumship knows this. And oftentimes it's nothing, 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 nothing. Amazing thing happened. Nothing, 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 nothing. Amazing thing happened, right? That's the way that it is, obviously, in development time. But I just am saying this so that those of you who are like, I want to believe that this is still real, it is. It is real. The only thing that you need to recognize is that there are people out there who are actively trying to defraud people. And that's what we're referring to when we say it's fake. That part is the fake part, because if anyone who's studied spiritualism, fraudulence and genuine mediumship have always been bedfellows from the very freaking beginning, and especially in physical mediumship. I mean, even in the way that spiritualism was founded with the Fox sisters, right? That's even like a controversial conversation. So, but what I want you to know is just because there are fake mediums out there, fake physical medium, mental mediumship, trance mediumship, whether intentional, conscious, or not, that exists. Just because that exists does not mean that every single thing that has ever been said about physical mediumship or mediumship in general is fake too. We don't throw away all of it just because there are a few bad apples, or maybe several bad apples in the bunch.
You could not be more right. And that's what I think more recently why I've been continuing having these conversations is because, as I've said in my podcast, I started my own circle during this whole last year period to see for myself. I want to know what I'm witnessing in these seances. Is that possible for me? Yeah. Is that possible at all? I think it is. I believe in the wonder and power and magic of spirit. And I think, a lot of people are saying, oh, it's such a shame that she now doesn't believe or stopped developing or stopped her circle. I have just paused my circle because when I think about my circle friends and the people that came close to support me and how they had never experienced any of these things in a seance, none of them had ever been to a seance before. So I was starting from scratch with people who knew just what I've told them and what they've read. And didn't really know what to look for necessarily because I said, let's not talk so much, let's just start. And we immediately had phenomena happening immediately. And I haven't really shared a whole lot about what those things are yet. And I probably will in the future when I do go back to my circle. But for now, I just feel like vomiting at the thought of sitting in a cabinet because it reminds me of him.
Right.
So you're right. It's such a shame because we need to change the way it's being done. We need
Mm.
to change the way it's being portrayed, the way it's being faked, and give spirit an actual opportunity to work with honest people
Yeah.
who who are comfortable saying, I'm aware the whole time, or it doesn't seem to be like what I've seen happening for everyone else.
Yeah.
Just being honest with their circle and with the world. And so I do still believe. People think that I don't believe anymore. I do. I'm just questioning how it
Yeah.
looks like. And I completely agree with you that it's not a scheduled thing when you see there's gonna be, we better put out pencils because I think there's gonna be a precipitation art tonight.
Yeah. I mean, the thing is, I mean, I could see where you'd come prepared for the possibility, especially if you have clear communication with your guides and they're able to say those things. But or if you've done it a lot and when I do this, this is what ends up occurring. I can see that being a thing still, but it's more so the I'm going to do this many seances, and as you mentioned, and then I'm going to be drinking in the pub, the rest of the night and doing all that sort of thing. So, I mean, this person that we're referring to, I just don't know how to say this in any other way. He is a fraud. It is just fact. The only way you can continue to believe this person is to believe his lies, number one. Number two, completely ignore the physical evidence that supports the fact that he's a fraud. And I will always speak out against this person forever.
Yeah.
Well, I will always come back to I will always speak out against him. I mean, until he stops doing seances. And to be honest with you, my hope is that he finds, I regularly send this person this loving light of awareness that he could somehow remember the good part somewhere in there, and that he could choose to stop doing this, and that he could the part, because he is a divine person too. We all have the divinity within us, and I believe somewhere within him there is good. And I'm hoping that that part can come out and go, you know what, it is wrong of me to continue to do this. It is wrong of me to defraud people and take their money and pretend like I'm their loved ones and just tricking people that's my whole life. That's gotta be freaking exhausting. My friend sent me a picture actually just the other day or just last night of him and this medium, other quote unquote physical medium, who he himself, this medium we're talking about, was this person's a total fraud. He used to laugh about how fake this medium, who's in this picture with him, who he's now working with, is he used to say what a fake fraud he is, and would claim that it was his wife smuggling in the pieces of the stuff. And I mean, he just would bag on this person so badly. And then now, apparently, best buddies, pictures together. It's so wild how he can just he's mercurial like that. He'll just transform to what the moment is requiring, and it's unfortunate. And I pray and hope and just send him awareness all the time. Can you just come to the reality that this is wrong, and that we can do good instead of harm. Just do your healing, bro. You would do great if you just did your healing and that's it. But the ego does a lot of things.
I agree with you there. It is interesting to watch the ways that he takes advantage of opportunity.
Yeah.
And I also have compassion. It really I think at the conference when I saw him, it's the evening, he's winding down and having a couple drinks, and what I saw there was somebody who just wants friends,
Yep.
somebody who just wants to be liked and loved and
Yep.
admired. And
Yep.
we all want that.
Yes.
I really did see the human in
Yeah.
him night after I realized everything, and I needed to see for myself that he was drinking just, because of those protocols. But it just, I felt so sad for him. It
Yep.
just, my heart, it was aching,
Yep.
literally. And then at the same time, knowing that I've been ripped off, I've been
Yep.
touched, I've been
Yep.
slimed, I've been,
Oh,
uh, you know, uh, intimidated and made to feel like a shitty medium. And again, we know that that's could be me, could be him, but it's probably him. Um, there's these two sides of the compassion for what is and the reality of what is, but also we have been wronged and we've been taken advantage of. And please, 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 we need people to speak up. We need people to speak up so that this can stop and so that we are protecting everyone involved.
100%. And he's
Okay.
going to keep capitalizing on those who do have our compassion and do have our heart and do have those things. And it's scary, folks, and you will get shit for it. And like, you just have to know that going into it. And I think that that's what people are most afraid of is the backlash. And I feel like my journey, I was very blessed. I feel like the spirit world. Remember, I started this whole thing off with my obsession with Australia. I went there. I had this experience. I have no desire to anything Australia ever again. I will for if one of my friends wants to go, but I have no desire for that. But I genuinely believe that I had that feeling because I needed to go there to have this experience. Because I 100% will say the spirit world has been so beautiful and has blessed me with maybe at the time didn't feel like a blessing, but with seeing the height of fraud in mediumship, which is this medium we're talking about. And then after that, they led me to some of the greatest living mediums we have right now who got to become my teachers and who got to become very close friends of mine during that time of development. And in fact, one of them I'm going to speak to a little bit later today, who I built this whole relationship from having this experience with actually both of my mediumship teachers. It was having conversations about these things that had happened. It was having these conversations that opened the door to that relationship. So I got to see the most fraudulent to meeting some of the most amazing mediums I've ever known ever who are living right now. And I got to see both. I got to see the height of genuineness. And so now I have this whole spectrum of what is real, what is possible, what is fraudulent. And that level of clarity, I think, was required for my growth. So for those of you who maybe are scared to talk about this, or for you, Jenny, this is such an important step for your understanding and your growth and your development as a medium, as a person, as a self-reflective person, which I very much know you are. Like, to me, this is actually a gift, even though it feels awful. And I feel like if you, so quote unquote, pass the test, and I don't believe the spirit will test us, so I'm using this as a phrase, but if you pass the test, so to speak, I feel like you get a gift after. I feel like you get the gift of learning knowledge, but then also genuine spirit communication. Like, we're all at those seances because we're looking for something real, right? Let's not waste our time on something that's not real. And if you know that you've had a sitting or sat in this seance with someone like this who you suspect is fraudulent, and specifically this person, you will do yourself a favor to delete this experience, or maybe not delete it, but recognize it for what it is, which is fake, so that you can now go find the thing that is real. And I will tell you this, the things that are real are far more magical than anything that's ever happened in that seance room. And they don't require creepy masks or getting slimed or any of these things. The reality of the spirit world is far more magical. And when you find the things that are real, that nothing and no one can ever take away from you. And so that is what I want to really emphasize to those of you who are kind of on the fence of speaking the truth, and also for those of you who have been conned or anything by this medium or other mediums who are doing the same thing, recognize that just because something is fake, that doesn't mean that it was worthless or useless. It's teaching you what's not real, and it's redirecting you towards something that is more real. And that's truly the direction that you want to go to unfold your spiritual awareness and to get closer to genuine spirit communication.
So nicely put. Yeah. I think this is a good place to end, Michael. I think we've said everything
we did it.
Thank you so much for being here.
My pleasure. Thanks for giving me the chance. And yeah, I just hope people take something away from this and recognize, this has been going on for longer than 10 years. Mm-hmm. And it's still happening. And I'm like, can I just give him a different job so that he can just go do this and you can make money and do whatever the hell you need to do, but stop doing this so that we can have goodness. But I don't love, dredging up the past like this. I don't love going into this topic. In fact, this is the first time, other than the Psychic News article, that I've ever really spoken publicly about it. I just really hope that this story helps someone and that they're able to realize that there's more genuine things out there. Just get past this little bump and we'll get there. So thank you for giving me the chance to share all of that, Jenny.
Awesome. I'm sure it will find the right people over time. Okay. Thank you. Talk to you later.
All right. See ya.
So, I think that this episode shows that this video experience from 2016 was not a one-off experience. It wasn't a fluke. It wasn't an experimental seance. Spirit wasn't working with what they had. Spirit simply was not in control at all. I'm starting to see the storyline here, that there are multiple times that this person has been caught in the act, and his answer is always the same. We'll have to ask Spirit next time we sit. He does have a get out of jail free card that we're all accepting because we're told that's how it works. The commonalities between our experiences show me that these tricks have been perfected over time, that they haven't changed, that it is not Spirit conducting his body or materializing in the room to pick up ping pong balls and move people in their chairs. What this tells me is that he's practiced on someone. I want to know where he began. If anyone out there knew this individual before 2014 and would like to speak up and tell your story, please get in touch with me. Another commonality is the way that the community reacted both times. With Chris's story and Michael's story, the reaction was the same. Please, stop doing what you're doing. Go back to your home circle. Go back to Spirit. Confess to what you've done and we'll forgive you. We'll put this behind us and trust that you'll do better in the future. But he didn't do that. And all these years later, here I am, sharing my story in the same way. I know that he's listening to this podcast. He's emailed me and threatened me. He's taken his website down. But I know that he's going to continue on. Stop doing what you're doing. You are hurting people. You are taking innocent people's money, and you are blaming it on Spirit. Please, stop damaging the reputation of all mediums, of mediumship in general, of the spirit world, of physical mediumship. Please, stop. So I put out a call. Who's next? Who would like to share their story next? I would also like to know if anyone has information about him being a private investigator, first responder, bodyguard, owning a pub, possibly owning a hair salon, and flying helicopters. If you know that about this person and can prove it, please get in touch with me. That's it for now. Will there be future episodes? I don't know. Probably.